Well, if you had your ear blown out, as usual, we started off pushing the wrong button, going backwards and forwards. These electronic things, these graphic things are fine. You have to get used to the fact that they're not real buttons. If you've got pudgy fingers like me, then unfortunately you hit the wrong one and away it goes. Anyway, good morning. It's Keith Hayes with the Rouser Radio out of Lewes, East Sussex. Particularly broadcasting to those people from Battle to Brighton. And of course we talk primarily about Lewes at the moment because we're based in Lewes. But we do welcome people around the world. We've got people in a good many countries who tap in and take a listen to us. Not sure that they listen to the whole half hour, and I don't blame them. I find it very difficult myself. But why are we here? Well, essentially, we're here as, I hope, part of an emerging scene of the way that local government can be held to account. As I never tire of telling you, the good folk at Harvard University did a survey primarily for the States, but then it spilled over to the UK, which demonstrates that when local media shrink, withdraw from local communities, then I saved you my sneeze there. I had to switch off the microphone. I had a little burst of sneezing. What the survey shows is that as local media shrinks, so the efficiency of local councils comes down and the cost, that is the council tax, goes up. And nowhere can that be more true than most of the communities across the southeast in East Sussex. And it is interesting that just yesterday the government bailed out East Sussex County Council, who promptly turned around and said, well, don't think that's the end of it. We're going to come back and beg for more. And one lady pointed out on some form of social media, I think it was one of the groups, that East Sussex County Council have put up a brand new website to alert older people to the fact that it's going to get very cold. And in fact, it's very cold this morning. My toes are tingling. My cheeks are flushed. And I'll tell you one thing, is you better be careful with your nose when you poke out of bed this morning. One of you has got to flip a coin to see who's going to go and switch the heating on if you don't keep it on overnight. So it's pretty damn cold. And East Sussex County Council have put up a website to just warn older folk and remind them that they have to wrap up, because otherwise they're going to start to suffer. And this lady objected to the fact that money was being spent on, as she put it, a very expensive and classy website to warn people about the cold. I think her point really was, one, she can't really be the expense. I mean, even if they spent a couple of hundred or so, they've already got a router and all the rest of the paraphernalia, so putting up an extra page on their website isn't going to cost that much. But I suppose her point really was that they are concentrating on that rather than services with money. The money they have not to spend, or the money they have to spend that they don't have, if you get my drift, as they would say. I'm not sure that I agree with the lady, but she made a fair point, and luckily we're in democracy and she can make that point. My point would be, is why have they suddenly decided to look after the elderly when they're going to take the bus pass away? Or that was in the original plan, which shows the thinking. Charge for libraries, charge for those who can't get to school and college under their own steam, who get subsidised help, all those sort of things that they are going to cut for the elderly. And then suddenly they have a burst in which they want to make sure that we're not going to kill ourselves by getting cold outside. It just shows the sort of squandered thinking that goes on in our councils at the moment. Anyway, I started off to say that there's a new form of governance or media coverage of local councils beginning to grow since shrinkage caused the big boys, and there are some good papers and some good television stations and radio stations, etc. around, but they can't look at local councils the way that the newspaper used to when we were small towns and they were small newspapers. We're very small. We can't look at it in the old-fashioned way either. But I think what's happening is that we're becoming a focal point voice for the county, and the real investigative journalism is done by some daring people, some really investigative journalist people who do Lewis Alive, I think they call it. No, they don't. It's called. It'll come back to me in a minute. In fact, when we play a record, I'll find out. I feel very guilty about forgetting to so many Lewis outlets. And Lewis Present, of course, is a pretty damn good one. But anyway, all these smaller groups and websites that appear on Facebook and other social media, they do the very tiny job. They find lost dogs and they say when the market is going to open and that sort of thing, which we couldn't possibly cover and wouldn't have the time since we only have half an hour a day. That's self-imposed, by the way. We could rabbit on for 3 or 4 hours. Wouldn't you love us for that? But half an hour is plenty to get out the sort of stuff that we get out and that you can listen to later in the day. But they do the donkey work because they come across things. Somebody comes home and finds out that the gatepost has been vandalized. So we're able to take a look at what's happening on the vandal stage and hopefully cause enough fuss on this radio station so that the police and the council will take notice, or will have to take notice. We're pretty small at the moment. We've only got a small audience, but the more that we grow, the more effort and effect we're going to have on what the local council does. So as it grows, I think that this new form of media that can look and will look at local issues to try and keep everybody on their toes, and therefore, bring down the council tax, and therefore, can increase the efficiency of the council, which is pretty dire at the moment in Lewis, and that goes for Eastbourne too, because we're Lewis and Eastbourne. Whoever thought up that daft merger? And some of the other tiny towns from Battle to Brighton, going north to Gatwick and going north to Tunbridge Wells. So that's the area that we like to cover. I never mentioned Bexhill. And for some reason I have difficulty remembering the name Bexhill. I don't know why. But so apologies to the people in Bexhill, but we certainly would like to hear from you if you've got anything that you want us to say or make representation of. I've rabbited on. I promised I wouldn't. Let's see if we got some new music. Oh yes, let's go back to our favourite people who come out of New Haven. They're local, but they're just so professional and very good. John and Claire, because we have a different track this morning, one called Skywalker. So see what you think.
It's a tightrope walk on an ice age, honey, and you can play that game, but it won't be funny for long. Oh, for long. She's high, she's a star. on the wire ahead. It doesn't matter. It's a long way down. Long way down. So you place your foot to assess the tension and convince yourself to continue knowing it's wrong. Oh, it's wrong. It's wrong. But when she's high, she's a skywalker. Doesn't matter. Just focus your mind on the wire ahead. It doesn't matter. It's a long way down. Long way down. What a spectacular performance.
Well, we'll leave Skywalker and John and Claire there. A lovely record, available. You can get it, I think, guess off Amazon. But if not, take a look on Facebook. Not Facebook, YouTube. As I'm pretty sure that it's available there. But they're a great pair and really very professional, and they're going places. The crowds increase. Their albums are beginning to sell. We're going to hear more of them as the time goes by. But I have to say that Claire comes from one of the most delightful families that I've ever come across. I've known 3 or 4 eccentric families in my time, and I've been proud to be part of them. But believe me, that I'm friends with her father and mother, well, in fact, with the entire family. And eccentric isn't the word. Clive Shorthouse is a character and a half. And those people who are around New Haven probably see him with his grey beard and a rather portly figure, red cheeks, and very genial expression. They just don't cross him, that's all, because the geniality can change. No, not really. He's a very, very decent and very nice chap. And his wife, Mary, who, in the very latest stages of her life, if I can put it that way, because I always look at her and I think she's 35, but she is a little bit older than that, and she got a PhD as she sort of entered her 60s, which I thought was a really splendid effort. But apart from Claire, there are 2 other very, very talented daughters. Charlotte is an opera singer, and Fleur is a professional storyteller, and there are only a small group of them around, and they have really special skill. So if you ever see a sign, notice saying that Fleur is holding one of her storytelling sessions, go along. Don't put it off as something that's a bit strange and so on. You go along and make sure that you take at least one listen to a story from Fleur. But her dad and I, on one occasion, and it's long enough ago now, so I can tell tales out of school because I don't think that we'll get our fingers burned, but Clive was holding a charity tea party one Saturday, and he asked me and my late wife Valerie if we would attend, just to make sure that there were numbers, which we did. And it's just to start at 3 o'clock. At 3:30, there was nobody there except Valerie and I, and Clive and his wife Mary. At 4:45, he decided, I wonder if I've got the wrong day. He went and checked, and it was indeed a week later. And everything was laid out, and so we stayed for tea, and we scoffed a lovely, lovely chocolate cake. It was quite magnificent. It was a very jolly tea because there was enough there for about 50 people, I think. But in the middle of the week, Clive called in a panic and said, "Keith, you've got to help me. We've got to go." This was when they lived at Lewis. We've got to go around and we've got to find a cake. We've got to buy a cake because a lady who donated the cake we ate on Saturday wants to come along and get the money and see it auctioned herself. So here Clive and I, still with the smudge of chocolate around our lips, up the cheeks of our face, actually, got a very good wood chocolate cake, and we scoffed it with great glee. Just going around the cake shops in Lewis, trying to find one that looked approximately like the one that we'd eaten. But because we'd eaten it, we couldn't remember what it looked like. I can't remember whether we fooled the lady or not, but it was the sort of thing that only Clive Shorthouse could get me into. They're a wonderful, wonderful family, but like all eccentric families, enormously talented. I can't tell you how much talent they actually exude, and not only that, they're all delightful with it. They're quite a modest family. There's nothing hoity-toity about them at all, just because they've got so much talent amongst themselves. Very approachable, very decent people, very nice people to sit down and talk to. So New Haven, you've got some gems down there, and do go and listen to Claire and John whenever you can. If not, buy one of their records, because they are really superb singers, as you could just hear. And they've got a fair old range of music for you to listen to, and it's all top quality. I guess if they were a bigger name, they would find themselves into the top 20, or is the top 20 for that sort of peculiar music that nobody understands except the under 20s. Never mind. Now, let's not get curmudgeonly. Let's pretend that as aged people that we admire everybody, except that once again my computer just wouldn't do anything that it should do yesterday, and I've had a one of these things that checks your computer and tells you what rubbish you've got in it. But it wouldn't work. And so I got a number to call, and it turned out the number was in India. And I had a lovely, lovely conversation with a lady in India who took control of my computer and went through it and found there was so much rubbish in it that it was, if it had been on the park bench, it would have been overspilling. So she actually started the process of defragging it, or getting rid of the junk anyway. And she was very good. And I had a chat to her. It was about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock last night. I had a chat to her. And she was a very pleasant lady. And we talked about all sorts of things while the old computer was going chunk, 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 chunk. Unfortunately, like a lot of things, this ended a little bit... well, not with her, but with the company, which is called Drive Tonic, I think. Because when I first went in to Drive Tonic on my computer, it told me that all I could use was the simple version, in other words, the free version, which didn't do very much at all. But I'd paid a subscription just last November, checked on the emails. And it wouldn't let me put my code in. It said it was the wrong code, and so on and so forth. So it gave you a number for help, which I called, and that's when I got hold of this young lady. And instead of giving me my code, which was a bit silly of me not to ask, she defragged the whole thing herself, but then said, "I'm going to hand you over to an engineer who can put it right for you." And before I could say, "Bob's your uncle," I was talking to an engineer. I need to find out that he was going to charge me 250 quid. Well, probably the work required on the computer to get it going again properly is worth 250 quid. But I wasn't expecting it. And I resisted a little bit. And the more I think about it, the more I think that that's the sort of thing that shouldn't happen. I was given a code. The code doesn't work. I phone, thank God I did in this particular occasion, to the number, and ask, I say, and tell them there's something wrong with with the code. They help put things right. But then, as we go down the road, suddenly I'm expected to whip out my credit card and pay £250 on the spot. Well, I never have £250 in any bank account or credit card or anything, so I couldn't. And I told them so, and I said, you're just going to have to put it over, and I'll contact you again tomorrow, meaning today. And I'm really I really have to do a bit of research on this company, because I'm really a bit miffed that I was put in that position, and that I've already paid for this software to clean the computer on a regular basis, and why should I be now paying £250 for the computer to be cleaned by an engineer? So watch out for that sort of thing, because we sometimes can get conned. We think that we bought something, and it turns out really it's only a door so that we can pay all sorts of other money to these companies, which we weren't expecting, and which we shouldn't be paying if in fact the original product had done its work properly. So there we are. That's my rant for the morning against them. So I think we've been going 22 minutes now. So let's here is something called Entire, and when I played it last night, just to take a very quick listen, it seemed to me to be a pretty damn good little jingle. So let's see if you agree with me. Well, there you are, the entire thing. Pretty damn cold this morning. This is Keith Hayes with glowing cheeks, nose that is being pinched by the frost, toes which know that they are tingling. It is cold, and we were promised this cold, and we're getting it. And do be careful if you're at all going out at all. If you're going out into the wide world, be careful, because it'll be slippery. Be careful, because the traffic will have difficulty in controlling itself sometimes, and don't get in the way of a loose car. Be particularly vigilant when you're on crossings. Don't expect cars to necessarily be able to pull up quite as quickly as they would normally. There is a sort of heavy frost. There's a very, very cold weather, and vehicles just don't behave the way they do under normal conditions. So do be careful. Now, one of the things that we always are worried about, of course, is litter. And litter can be deposited in all sorts of places, not least of which is into the River Ouse. And one gentleman, he got a group of volunteers together because his little group is concerned about litter, and they went fishing in the Ouse around Lewes and came up with piles and piles of junk. I mean, I suppose one expects trolleys from supermarket. God only knows why people run trolleys into the river. I've no idea. I think probably it's because some people find that when they've got a trolley that they are like Toad of Toad Hall. Whenever I get a trolley, I'm so unused to them doing the shopping, is I always put a big L plate on to make sure that people around me know that I may run into them, but it's not intentional. But anyway, all sorts of things, bicycles, and trolleys, and also iron bits and pieces. They haul them out, and the pile was totally gobsmacking is the word. And so much so that he got hold of the local paper and he put it up on the website and said, here, what's going on? It's amazing what we do, isn't it? And I'm quite sure that a bit like fly tipping, we do it covertly. You know, let's throw something into the river because as long as nobody sees us doing it, we're okay we can get away with it. Oh, we do think strangely. One of the things that I mentioned yesterday, by the way, when we were talking about litter, is a friend of mine was trying hard to find a council who would go into partnership with him in terms of making land available at a reasonable price. He wasn't asking for it for free, to bring a theme park which would support the boffins, if you like, who research sound. And their thesis is we are as much at risk from noise sound as we are from pollution. So litter, pollution, sound pollution, all sorts of things that are going on, and people have got to become more aware. We know all about the plastics in the seas now, but we're polluting our own environment, our land environment, and it just simply has got to stop. And perhaps heavy fines, or perhaps if people are going to throw stuff into the river, what we could do is make the punishment fit the crime and bring back a ducking stool. I always felt very sorry for those people who were charged with witchcraft in the medieval times, because they were put into the ducking stool and dipped into the pond. And if they drowned, they were innocent. And if they survived, they were guilty. So whichever way, they lost their lives. I thought most unfortunate for them. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit. I've enjoyed being with you. I hope that perhaps my rambles and my rants help us get closer to bringing our local politicians to account. So until tomorrow, I'm going to say toodle pip, and we will go out with our usual piece of music, which is Boundless, from Bensound. There's lovely people at Bensound who are so creative with their music. And this is called Endless Motion, and it's not endless indeed, because we're finishing, but we're back tomorrow, so I suppose we are. Endless Motion. Toodle pip, Keith Hayes, Lewis Rouser Radio. Ta-ra.